All right, we're back. It's a new week, and these last few weeks have been kind of a dance of less horrible than the week before. There might even be one or two bits of good news over the preceding weeks. So we'll just drop right into something that's legitimately really big, and then we'll go into something really big out of Texas, because everything out of Texas is big, right? I mean, that's what I heard anyway.
Including the insecurity.
Indeed. They've got big, big piles of salt in Texas. But we'll save that for just a second, because that's good. I have got Craig back. We unfortunately are missing Steve because he's had just a super busy week and a weekend, so it is what it is. It happens. But
he's had such a day.
He has such a day. Poor man. Poor man.
It's all right. He can rub in that Vagisil and relax. Relax to his heart's content.
Absolutely. So the good news is,
I'm just fucking with him now.
Oh no, of course he does the same thing to you if you haven't caught it. So.
I'm certain.
Yeah, without fail. So I had said when we were talking off air, this was a guy that was blind from birth. My bad. It was actually retinitis pigmentosa. So everything basically just disappeared for him.
Yeah,
but that was 40 years
tragic.
ago that this happened. So this
what's his current age? Or the age at treatment?
They do not mention, but I'm going to figure the guy's probably in his 50s, 60s, in all honesty. Because that sort of thing...
That's even more impressive to me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got to consider how long that's been going on and how used to its current state the body's become.
And that means his brain did have some connection, some training on the on light sensitivity prior to that.
Absolutely. And since we're kind of beating around the bush here, the long and short of it is, there's a blind man who we could certainly say he can see. He might well still be legally blind, but he's only legally blind now. And this was done not through cybernetics, not through a computer interface, not through a blown-up image, but genetic modification through a hollowed-out adenovirus. They basically made another part of his inner eye perform the functions of the retinal ganglion cells that had done this prior.
So something I can actually directly compare this to right now. This is similar, but not the same to the way that the adenovirus was used in the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the Janssen vaccine. Instead of having the appropriate for immune response stuff exposed on the outside of the virus, and then just using the cells to manufacture more viruses at a relatively slow rate, in this case, they would be using the virus as a vector to insert eventually the DNA, but the RNA sequence for the DNA necessary to correct the genetic defect. So non-propagating in that sense, which is really freaking awesome.
And the long and short of this is basically we've got someone who's fully blind. After the treatment and after a few months of using a set of goggles to train his brain in the right kind of light waves to pick up, or I guess we should say frequencies, they specifically say he's able to detect a notebook, a staple box, glass tumblers, clear glass, mind you, and stripes of a street walk. I mean, that's enough to live in the world. I mean, you're certainly not going to be reading a novel, and you're not watching television, but
at that advanced age, after that many years, so the key things here are he will get better vision as he lives.
Oh, sure. Yeah, his brain is going to be able to make use of that information all the better with every year that passes.
Probably for most of the rest of his life at this point.
58 years old. 58.
All right, so for most of the rest of his life, his vision will be improving instead of deteriorating. That's insane. Like that is awesome for him. That he has that to look forward to. Maybe his last year or two, his vision will get crappier because he won't be able to contract the ocular muscles quite the way he needs to.
Barring any further medical advances, mind you, or treatments.
Right. So I mean, this guy his vision is going to be improving. He might hit, say 2040 by the time he gets to the end of his life.
Well, that's probably a little bit bold, but
It's bold, yeah, but like he
But then
might
that's
get there.
also, for that matter, that's bold barring any further treatments.
Well, I mean, hell, if it worked this well this time around, it might as well. So, one of the downsides with using adenovirus as a carrier is that your body will react to it regardless of whether or not any propagation occurs. So, the treatment with the same exact strain, same exact, say from the same lot, same vial, that's only going to work so many times before your body just
Yeah.
attacks it immediately when it comes in
Yeah, I
and
mean,
then
you
goes
are
away.
using, what would otherwise be considered an illness by your body as a vector.
Yeah.
So the
So,
body will
it's only
treat
going to
it
work a
as
couple
such.
times. But if you use, like, say, different adenovirus strains, there's modifications you can make, obviously, with given all the variants of COVID and shit. Like, there's obviously, you don't have to make that big of a change to the virus to make it take time to get for your body to get rid of it again. So, as long as they have, like, a sequence of different viral vectors that they use to achieve this treatment, maybe they need to keep going a little bit with it, or maybe it's just down neuroplasticity at this point. But that's really awesome that they managed to get that to work. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds like it must have been a simple deficiency that caused a break in the chain there. But the basics are all there for it to function. It looks like
Well, yeah,
so.
and this is also another one of those early days kind of
It's a
things.
slam dunk.
And with this being, again, just an early days kind of experimental work, that's that's huge. I mean, that's a big, big win. That's the
Yeah,
Wright brothers actually getting off the ground.
yeah.
I mean, we've been working at this one, what, about as long as we've been working at trying to get people to be able to have hair again. I mean, Jesus didn't even give people hair; he fixed the blind. So, I mean,
That's
there
that's
wasn't any
because
talk of it, but there might
That's
have.
because 2,000 years ago, everybody had hair. They had hair everywhere. They had hair everywhere they didn't want hair, and they had probably had no hair in a couple of places. But probably certainly not like the top of the head.
Well, you know how it works out.
Remember, you're talking about an Arab Jew hanging out in the middle of what's now Israel.
Oh no, we're talking about white Jesus.
Okay, fine. He had
Oh
fantastic
yeah,
locks, but
luscious, glorious locks.
he was still among a whole bunch of Jews
Oh yeah, no, no.
who have more than enough hair.
Yeah,
Let me
well,
tell you.
yeah. So hair was it was kind of a non-issue one way or the other.
He could have gotten rid of hair, and it probably would have been okay.
Yeah, yeah, in all likelihood, and it would have been, an act of the sun. So, who's to complain at that, right?
He could have just come out with a razor and been like, Jesus saves.
Well, I mean, he said if you haven't got a cloak, go and buy a sword. So, maybe just keep your sword extra sharp. There you go, problem solved. Now, you had something you were just telling me about that I had only just heard about from you out of Texas. So, what's this big news you were telling me?
Oh yeah, the Texas, I guess their Senate, they passed this bill, and it has to do with the voter rolls. Um,
Oh, so I guess now they're going to ensure that our democracy is well protected and that no one, no matter how old, living or dead, will ever be removed.
so what they've decided to do is they've decided to permit the AG to use the jury list to purge voters, and also
Now,
to
hold
clear the voter
on.
rolls.
Now, I just want to
To clear
clarify. You
voter
can
rolls.
still dead people can still serve on juries, right?
Well, all non-citizens and non-residents will be purged from the voter rolls.
Oh dear, no,
So I
that's
guess that
terrible.
means that if you're a Democrat who died as a resident and you still live in Texas, well, live is a technical word there.
Reside.
If you still reside in yeah, you're still a Texas resident,
Oh yeah, I mean you're just
at whichever
below the
cemetery.
ground as opposed to above it.
So provided that there aren't bars over your grave holding you in, I suppose you could still vote,
Oh well, that's good. That's
or
good.
just have
There's
your grandkids vote for you in Texas.
I'm sure they'll be willing and more than willing to do that in Austin and places like that.
Austin and Dallas and certain parts of Houston where they don't make anything useful.
Well, when you don't make things, you have to construct things or
Yeah,
teach.
like a principle for defrauding the entire United States.
Well, as you do, just on the days that end in Y, though. So it's not like it's widespread or anything. Nothing, nothing like that. So yeah, the
Oh man, I'm
large and
still
short of
getting
this
this
is
out.
basically what's going to happen is they're going to have fairly legitimate voter rolls, insofar as they can be
Well,
legitimate.
sure. Now that's still so there's certain downsides to that. That could easily result in an AG removing someone illegitimately. So it's possible to potentially be removed from one of these lists in a manner that is not legitimate.
Oh,
So that's
certainly.
something you'll have to be vigilant about. But you'd think that someone who's engaged in a republic would give a shit about whether or not they could vote before they have the opportunity to vote. Um, in my opinion, I think that you should have to register to vote again every 10 years minimum.
I don't think I
But
necessarily have a problem with that. I mean,
but that's
especially
just me.
considering how easy it's become these days to actually register.
Yeah, it's not fucking hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Like,
super easy these
and
days.
every 10 years is about as often as you have to renew your driver's license. So if you show up and you get your driver's license, I think that should be the time to register to vote.
I mean, yeah, if they're going to be doing the motor voter
So
thing,
easy.
that's the best argument I can hear for it.
I
And I
see
don't know if
no
I necessarily
downside to that
support the motor
requirement.
voter thing, but I mean, if you're going to do it, you know, do it right for fuck's sake.
I see no downside with registering to vote when you show up to renew your driver's license.
Yeah, I mean, it seems
Straightforward.
reasonable to me.
Or hell, even if you're not automatically taken off the rolls every 10 years, I see no reason why you shouldn't be able to re-register every time you go in to get your driver's license.
Sure. I mean, it seems reasonable, but so many things that seem reasonable really don't go very
Right.
far these days, sadly. But reasonableness and common sense are in equal measures as common in 2021. Kind of can't have either one.
What the hell happened in Discord? I just saw the preview for that tweet disappeared.
Oh, I'm just clearing out the previews so that I know what
Oh,
topics we've
okay.
covered. Back end
That's
stuff.
interesting.
Yeah, I want to leave the links so that we can pull them back up. But if
Wow, God, I can't believe you're censoring your own Discord, man.
I know, right? I'm a regular
You
uh,
you uh you authoritarian fascist. That's
real.
that's what I'm supposed to do, right? I'm supposed to call you a Nazi for doing mundane shit.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll go. Hold on. I'll.
Oh yeah, like all these people on Twitter just today
Oh yeah, you
going
were saying
after
that you had
going
upset
after
some folks.
people. Yeah, you see, all you have to do is mention that Brian Sicknick died of having two strokes the day after the riot,
Two
without
strokes
any
from a
connection
baseball
to
bat, you
anything.
say?
Oh no, no, natural causes.
A
And that's
naturally
what the
produced
medical
baseball bat.
examiners. That's what yeah, there would. That's what medical examiners said is naturally occurring strokes. He died of two strokes at the base of his brain. Remember that can't remember what the hell the blood vessel was, but he died of two strokes. One right after another.
Are we sure he didn't die of a broken heart? I mean, he
And
did technically.
it had nothing to do with any chemical irritants or physical injury from the day before. He died of two strokes, completely natural causes. It's tragic death. And today, a bunch of jackalopes were tap dancing on his grave for political points, saying he died to protect your ass, etc., or he was murdered by Trumpies or whatever.
Wow, they're making Trumpers
Yeah,
smaller and smaller.
and this is Washington Post and NBC and several other liberal leaning or left leaning outlets
Yeah, it's
that admitted the shit in the middle of April, so middle of last month. A bit over a month ago, these outlets had to post this after they let it simmer for months that this had happened. And I believe we were bitching about it back then too, but just thought it was interesting since it came up for the weekend. Weekend, which by the way is um, as Vice President heals up, mentioned everybody. We just have a long weekend this weekend. It's there's nothing special about it. Oh
Yeah.
wait, except for when she got called out on that, and she then went ahead and went on at length about the Memorial Day holiday.
There's that thing, where some people
The
died.
reason why she's eating those packs of hot dogs raw, to advance her career.
Well, you know,
Everybody's got a talent,
well,
right?
she's got other things to worry about. She hasn't had time to go down to the border yet, so she's obviously very busy.
Well,
I mean,
speaking of how busy she is, if you can't be the sharpest tool in the shed, you can at least be the hoe.
that's true. That's true. I mean, or in her case, I don't think she was really doing much hoeing. I think she did a lot more vacuuming. She really she knows her way around suction. She really does. Like that lady knows a vacuum and how to create one.
So is she like a dirt devil, or is she like a Hoover?
Oh, I'm thinking she definitely falls into the vein of a Hoover. Definitely
Ah,
does.
okay.
Definitely. So another one out of mainstream media. I don't know if you saw this, but ABC has even come out on the lab leak narrative.
Oh,
And
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, we're basically looking at all the everything's falling, and I mean with
Oh, don't. They shouldn't post that on Twitter. They'll get banned for that, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
is that just me mistakenly remembering the entire spring and last year?
Remember, I'm sorry, sir. We've always been at war with Eurasia, so I don't know what you're talking about. And
I
if
mean,
you'd
I'm
like to
pretty
say
sure
that we've
I
ever
was.
been at war with Eurasia, you're also wrong. So,
Oh God, I was having fun with this one with my cousin. He was saying, basically who got banned, whoever got banned for posting that. It's like, well, only
oh,
count the ways.
yeah, yeah, I
Like, let's
can
just
look
go
at
and look
my,
at New York Post getting censored on Facebook multiple times for the same issue.
literally this, as a matter of fact.
Literally this issue, yes, multiple times for literally this issue. Multiple articles pulled from Facebook, people banned for posting it,
And one of the
groups
really good
destroyed for posting it.
takeaways from this specific report is one almost throwaway line from John Carl. And that
Uh,
line is, some things may be true even if Donald Trump said them. Oof.
well, gee, really?
Oof. Boy, that one,
I mean,
that has got to
there are
sting.
some people that I will go outside and check to see if it's true and they say the sky's blue. But sometimes you just got to know whether or not something's true before you go, oh, but they said it, and then freak out.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is a funny, funny, funny world. And
Yeah.
speaking of funny dystopian worlds, did you catch the news about this group called Citizen? Is supposed to be a private security force, a la cyberpunk.
Ah.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing. Here, I'll get the link. It's a report out of Vice, which again,
Well,
when you can use
huh.
adversarial media, why not, right? But yeah, the long and short is, if you know anything about cyberpunk, they're basically wanting to get these people the same kind of powers that any
Mm,
kind of police
mm,
organization would.
mm-hmm.
They at this time they have no more power than any given citizen or security organization, but they want.
Hold the fuck up.
Oh,
I just gotta read the first tweet here. I'll just leave the rest of it. New. The CEO of the private security force with capital C here, Citizen, is partnering with one. With the private security force Citizen is partnering with, wants the power to arrest people and take them to jail. Explains how upset he gets when LAPD takes his quote prisoners from him. If
that
you
is
think
really
that they're
good.
your prison, like if you effect a citizen arrest, That's not your prisoner. That's a citizen that is under your arrest. And as soon as the police arrive, they're no longer under your arrest. They're under police arrest. And you. Because you're...
Yeah, it's funny how that works.
Oh my god. Like, putting on a badge and a uniform like this dipshit, like... Okay, like, just... I hope these people look at the mirror and at least, like, have the self-awareness to chuckle before they leave in the morning.
I'm going to say I doubt it.
I doubt it, but, like, you just gotta hope that at some point they just kind of get that chuckle out of their system.
Well, hope in one hand and as they were.
I like the description though. Like, this guy's literally running around the city of LA with a gun, kidnapping people and filming it. I mean, if it turns out that it is not a legal citizen's arrest, it is kidnapping.
And so if he's been videotaping all of this stuff, then that's I mean, I don't know. Not that Gavin Newsom's going to come down on him, but if he chose to, boy,
it's legal to do so. But like, it can easily fall into the into that. What was it? The homeless fights thing. It can easily fall into that category.
Oh yeah, bum fight stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, bum fights. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder how often they bust out the content spray for those videos.
I mean, it must depend on how well their plans are doing as to whether or not they start pulling out those NDAs later on. Now, hey guys, so any of you guys want to be on TV? You're under arrest.
We're giving out free tattoos, guys. Yeah, that'll be great. And a small update on the ATF situation with the Arbiter of Death, David Chipman. More and more keeps coming out. This guy is...
Oh, you're going to go back to the shit you were talking about earlier on Waters?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's absolutely vile. So, I'm not going to, like, take too much time on this, but if you have the ability, do contact your state representatives, Congress and Senate, let them know that they need to put in that this person cannot be put into a position of power. He's in a picture.
He's vile.
Oh, he is actually literally evil. The man has done nothing good for America in all of his days, and the one good thing that he will do will probably not come soon enough. So, all I can say is that this man is evil and must be kept far, far away from any position of power because he has literally burned children alive.
But you see, I thought that he was defending himself in the Black Hawks from the 50,000. That totally existed.
Right. Yeah, that totally existed. That were certainly not debunked shortly thereafter. Certainly not like that. All I'm going to say is there's another BLM out there, and it's a lot more noteworthy than the one you hear about these days. And, that BLM also had a bit of a defeat. And, well, you know, I will cheer at the defeat of BLM. That's all I'll say, you know?
Well, there's a religion, I think it was, that was either like starting up, or no, it was a religion that they trade with guns, and they got themselves like 40 acres in Texas recently, which brought that up also. Oh yeah, by the way, Snopes debunked Chipman being in that picture because he said so in Senate testimony.
Oh, that's the reason. Because his testimony, obviously being, you know, more trustworthy than a picture of him at the scene, you know, where you can actually see a charred corpse. I will be honest, you can't tell from the size of the corpse and the distance if it's a charred child that he murdered that he's standing in front of, or just an adult that he murdered that he's standing in front of. But you know, it could be that it's one of the children that he took such great glee in murdering. It could be. I can't confirm or deny. I can't tell. I'm not really.
Look now. He didn't murder them. It was the fire that did that.
Oh, that's
He had
true.
nothing to do with it.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's not like they pumped the place full of flammable gas and used incendiary rounds on it. It's not like they did that at all. So, obviously, it was an entirely accidental and coincidental happening.
Yeah. According to someone like him, it would, of course, be a story that if, of course, they did happen to, by some chance, cause a fire, everybody inside was already dead from suicide anyway.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely what happened.
Oh, totally.
There are no people distributed in such a pattern that you might think they were trying to flee.
Oh, yeah, and you certainly wouldn't have had people huddled next to each other, by doors in horrifying scenes of despair and tragedy. Of course, you wouldn't have anything like that. That wouldn't have happened because obviously these were very bad people.
Oh, look, clearly it was the river of flesh that was melted off of them that dragged the bones to the door. It was all downhill from where they died.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why they were all set up against them.
Yeah, they were they were probably using those children as human shields,
Oh man, that makes them just like those Palestinians. Whoops, I shouldn't say that one out loud, should I?
Well, that's
You can't talk about
that's a
like
very
Hamas,
complicated.
huh?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'll be honest. I really do fall down kind of both ways on that. I really don't like the Palestinian Authority, but I like the Palestinian people, and I really don't like Zionists.
They're trapped. They get trapped in the middle, and that's the worst thing about it.
Well, that's kind of what happens to everybody. Is
and they get,
reasonable
they get,
people
well, the
get
problem
trapped.
is that the problem is that's the problem is they aren't. They would probably be otherwise reasonable people, but they are born and raised in an environment where they are brainwashed.
Well, something I can say
In a way that
entirely
they
on your
can't-
behalf is that you look at the story of the news, that news tower or whatever that the AP and some other organization was in. Not Hamas. Obviously, Hamas was in it. Everybody knows
the
that.
hotel that they occupied. Yeah.
But from what's come out since the time of that place being knocked down, is that in fact, it was it ABC? No, it was Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera and the AP that were in there. It has since come out that they in fact knew that Hamas was there. Not that they necessarily could have done anything about it, because if you're in Palestine and you want to do shit about Hamas, good fucking luck.
So,
but
a French journalist actually, he even has a book out. Unfortunately, it's all in fucking French, so you have to learn that language if you want to read it. But you can find it on Amazon. There's a French journalist in 2014 barely made it out of there with his life after reporting on what was really going on in there, and he had to flee all the way back to Europe. To prevent himself getting killed, just for bringing out a camera, recording shit. So and there's not Italian, Finnish or Swedish person who's in the Al-Aqsa hospital on camera. This is from ages ago too, talking about how they just fired a rocket out the back.
Yeah, no, I mean that is textbook Hamas. Like that is their shit. They will absolutely put a rocket site on top of a fucking school.
Yeah. So that's the thing is they don't. Al-Aqsa Hospital has their headquarters underneath it.
Of course it does.
That's been known for decades. So that's their standard MO. This is what I mean by being brought up in the culture where they're brainwashed in such a way that they're truly fucked pretty much for life at that point. They're taught as kids, and this is they have the actual textbook showing this, so it's not like it's just stories that are made up. They're taught to add and subtract by killing Jews. Here's 10 Jews, 5 are killed, now there's only 5 left. It's a shame. And it's a horrifying environment to bring a kid up in, but then they're also taught when they're told that we're going to fire these rockets, to go and huddle near them. They go and they do all this. They say, all right, families come pray, and they'll pray next to the rocket launch site. The rockets they launched, there was it over 2,000 in the last little row between Gaza and Israel.
Yeah, this little bullshit thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so about 400 of those rockets fell early. 17 people died before even the first IDF strike on the return fire. So, when they come out there and they tell you that all these kids have died, a lot of them are from their own fucking rockets, which is horrible. It's
Like
and then
there's a
they'll
time
blame
for
everyone
cheap
but themselves.
Chinesium, and there's a time
Yeah.
to spend on something good.
Well, it's Iranian rockets, but same difference there. It may as well be Chinese
Well,
because
see, yeah,
China
it's
loves
Iranian
Iran.
knockoffs of Chinesium, so you
Yeah,
know, I mean, we're
and it's the
really,
cheapest ones. It's the cheapest ones they can send through Egypt, basically.
yeah, yeah, that's where we are.
So that's what ends up happening is they'll fire these shitty rockets. About a quarter of them, fifth of them will fall early and kill their own people. Hamas and the PLO don't give a rat's ass about their people. They just want to fuck over Israel and kill all the Jews. In fact, what they say is they'd be happy if all the Jews moved to Israel because then they're all in one place for them to kill easily.
Well, I guess
Like it,
kudos for being honest.
yeah, and then you have the Queers for Palestine people over in the U.S. who would never really make it over there because they get dragged behind a motorbike till they stop twitching. But don't tell them that reality. They might get upset about it.
Well, a lot of that's the same kind of situation of the people that are saying there's what 1 in 5 women are raped and all these other statistics that don't really hold out in the entirety of the West, but do hold out if you
Right.
go to Africa. Oddly
Sure.
enough, and I don't hear a lot of them doing mission work in Africa.
Well,
Oddly
you might
enough.
ask why, for instance, someone like Ilhan Omar is so vocal about the United States and so
Isn't she from
ignorant,
Somalia?
honestly, of her own history in that sense. And then you have someone like Ayaan Hirsi Ali who just says outright that Ilhan Omar is trash, which is quite frankly an honest assessment.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, well, there's no evidence, so I can't say that she's incestuous, but we can say that
Oh, you mean
she has
it's
questionable
still up for debate.
choices in her relationships. We'll say.
It's up for debate. Was it the was it her ex-husband or was it the first husband who she married for immigration fraud?
Let's
And then of
say,
course there's the third marriage. Oh wait, that wasn't hers. She just broke it up. There was that because she wanted some big white cock in her mouth.
well, you know how it is.
No, that was supposed to be indoor words or inside words too, wasn't it?
No, that's cool. I'm pretty sure we can say that, and if we can't, we'll
Well,
get adequately
I know the
reprimanded.
stuff we can't say.
Yeah.
This is why we need Steve here.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he's gonna knock it out the park for us. Absolutely. Like, get me to the point where I need a mute button, or at least a live censor button.
We need the 8 second delay, right?
Oh man, I'm still not back on the mixer either. I have yet to figure that out. But whatever,
No. All
I've
right.
got this thing, so we made it work.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got. I don't know if you consider it good news, but I do. Uh, I don't. Nothing kind of good comes out of the area, but anyway, Assad was reelected with a 95.1% of the vote. So congratulations, Lion of
Oh,
Syria.
that's fantastic news for him, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You did it,
That
Lion of
sounds like
Syria.
a Putin election.
Well, even if he didn't get 95%, I would say pretty certainly that he legitimately won it. It's entirely
Sure.
possible he didn't get 95.1%.
Well, the
If I'm being
question
honest
really
here.
is, look. He probably got 95 point whatever percent of the votes that were counted.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah,
And if you strategically cut out certain parts of the population, then it's pretty easy to get a really high percentage, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It is.
I mean, it's kind of like if, say, all your votes were coming in by mail and it was pretty obvious where they were coming from and who was voting.
Indeed. And on that note, I want to congratulate Joe Biden on convincing so many members of the military to change, their long held standards and really vote in a progressive fashion, and really try and embrace something new. Like,
Oh,
like the purges and pogroms that they're going through right now. That's
speaking
really
of
something new for the U.S. military. And, congratulations on the really progressive idealism there, guys.
oh, man. Speaking of the military and the armed services, You saw that Kamala Harris gave a speech at the Navy, right?
I saw that Joe gave a speech, and he was not too happy that they didn't
Oh,
applaud.
you
But
didn't see you didn't see Kamala Harris talking to the electrical engineers then.
oh, what did she have to say? Do tell.
Oh, she was telling them about how awesome it's gonna be when they don't have to carry on those 20-pound batteries because they're gonna be using wind and solar power for
Oh,
combat power.
oh, wow. Yeah, actually, I caught a little bit of that,
After a
and I
joke
didn't
flops.
really, I couldn't understand what she was trying to say.
Oh
So,
yeah, it wasn't clicking for you probably because you have a brain and it was you need to watch it a couple of times for it to really sink in how stupid of a comment that was.
huh. Yeah, I had trouble making it through the first one. I got to the part where it sounded more like anything else to me, like just kind of rambling politician speak.
Oh, so you didn't see it, so you missed the part where her joke flopped too then.
There was a joke.
Apparently there was a joke in the middle of it when everyone was dead silent.
Oh, wow,
Also not a big shocker.
huh? Boy, she really sucks. Sorry, I had
So
to.
she got where she is.
Indeed, indeed. I know
Yeah.
it really blows trying to get ahead. It really does.
All right, you're running her out of your luck here.
Yeah, what can I say? What can I say? String them along sometimes. String them along. So, on that note, somebody has had some bad luck in stringing them along. Imagine you've probably heard about this. I don't know if a lot of my listeners will have, though. So, Netanyahu is looking like he's on the way out.
Oh yeah, Bibby. He might actually finally fucking leave.
Yeah, finally. Basically, what's happened here is everyone that hates him has worked
They're gonna
worked
do a
together to
coalition
actually
and have a
finally get him out
majority
of there.
government.
They're going to be having Bennett, I believe, is going to be the first prime minister until 2023, and then that's going to be happening in the next shit. That'll be happening in the next week, if I'm not
So
reading my dates wrong
the
here.
thing that people might not understand is there's not like a term limits thing over there. So Netanyahu has
He's
been
been the
in
longest serving, hasn't he?
pretty much. I mean, like after Sharon, uh, it's basically been Bibi.
Yeah,
So
yeah, pretty much.
he
There was
needs to he needs to get the fuck out. Basically, is what he needs to do. Like that's just I don't care if he's good or bad. Whatever your opinion is on him, it's too much time in government, too much time in power. He needs to be out. If he wants to have his opinions heard or whatever, get in the Knesset or so their Congress or have someone that has like politics uh, run and with his endorsement or whatever. Hey, he's been good and bad for the country, so he has that kind of he's been in power that long to have good and bad. It's like say the majority of our fucking Congress right now, where they've been in power like what 30, 40, 50 years. Get the fuck out. Just you're done. No more.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of old blood in there, and the old blood kind of functions in a very similar fashion to old money. It doesn't like change, and the change it
And
does
likes to
like is
say that it's
pocket
gonna
change.
change though. Say, look, we're gonna change everything. We're gonna do it exactly the same way we did it last year, but everything's gonna be different. All the problems that we told you about before that are still here, we're gonna solve them exactly the same way we did last time. Fucking ridiculous.
And actually, that's a really decent segue into something that's pretty much been a bit of an ongoing
Mm-hmm.
issue, but now it's kind of out in the open. And we were talking about this just before, but I don't know if people are aware. A lot. How should I preface this? There's always been a hacking scene. There's stuff like DEF CON, there's White
Yeah.
Hat cons, there's all these different
RSA
things that have
usually
been going
has
on.
conferences.
That, you know, there are all these things. You've heard about them, 0-day hacks and all these other competitions. Amazon themselves offer huge cash prizes if you can find problems with their software.
So
Microsoft as well.
bug bounties are huge.
Yeah. And, they're where all these 0-day hot fixes and all these really quick updates come from. Some of these from contests, some from in the companies themselves, some from third parties, and what have you. Some
One quick thing to say. I'm guessing that people aren't going to be very much into this who are listening, but just in case they are, bug bounties, way more lucrative if you also present a potential fix.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the problem is all the better when you've got a solution for it.
Yeah, show up with a solution or at least a direction for their problem, and they will be much happier that you arrived. Especially, they might. So some companies, if the company is stupid, they're going to be upset with you and tell you to fuck off because they've already got the solution from you. But most companies are going to like you and want to keep you around, and probably put you like on speed dial if they've got a fix that they think you can come in and help with. Or they'll at least put you on a mailing list and say, here's the problems we have.
And that's a pretty regular thing. That's like actually kind of its own little industry, a cottage industry, if you like. And if you've got the mind for it, it's good business. It's really good business. I mean, you're basically an electronics handyman. You're a problem solver.
Yeah.
And
that's something, by the way, that while it's good to get some of the fundamentals with a college degree, you can absolutely do like a trade degree or almost. So there's no trade degree for it. Like you can pick this up on your own because everybody's got a computer and everybody can go on the internet.
Yeah,
and
you
look
could
at stuff. So
just about mentor yourself on this.
If you're good at it, you'll be able to do it hands down. No issue. If you're not so good at it and you got the fundamentals from a college degree, you'll probably still be able to manage it. So a computer engineering degree is probably better than a computer science degree in this regard. But either one would at least give you the fundamentals necessary to start getting your hands dirty.
If code makes sense to you, this is something you can do. If code is like some weird language that you struggle to understand, it might not be the thing for you. It might be. You can a person can be taught to do about anything, but
I'll say this. There's a lot of competent programmers out there who I know for a fact would not be able to do any of it. But there's also a lot of people who aren't particularly good at, say, writing a fantastic piece of software who can still find out ways to break it real easily.
That's true.
So, to them, more power to you.
But with that being said, the story here is these things are done in this way, as we've described. You come up with a hack, you come up with maybe a solution, but at the very least, you come up with the problem and you report the problem to the people responsible. They cut you a little paycheck, give you a pat on the back, and come up with a solution. Everybody's happier. You go along your way. And Chinese participants have been doing this for years. As a matter of fact, a great number of the payouts have been going to Chinese college students and independent individuals. Yeah,
and so, but just to give you guys an idea of scale also, it ranges from anywhere from like 50-ish, so real cheap companies would be like $50-ish, up to tens of thousands.
Yeah, like you could finance yourself for a year. On one fix, theoretically. I mean, you could. You got
a crap apartment, not to judge standards on that, but I had a reasonable apartment at about 15 a year. So for a studio apartment, easily knock that down. And if you're in a rural-ish area, a studio apartment, very easy to support yourself for about a year off of like one really good high quality bug fix.
Yeah, and the world of 2021 being what it is, that's very reasonable. I mean, if you really wanted to, and
I had
you're competent,
inflation in there, had I?
go somewhere that's lost population, or that doesn't have a large population.
Do that second one.
Isn't blue.
When you lose population, that might be bad.
Actually, yeah, there's only one place that lost population that you want to go. So, okay, so let me rephrase that. The only place that lost population that you actually want to go is West Virginia. Everywhere else that lost population probably don't go because they lost it for a reason.
Probably had a reason.
Yeah, West Virginia, I think, at least from what old Tim Pool's saying, take that for what it's worth, from the middle of the fence, is that it was probably all the lefties getting scared away. So,
that's probably good. Well, it's not just that. It's not just them getting scared away. It's them deciding they're going to move out because the place is going downhill anyway. Because nobody has any money because all the industry got crushed.
Damn old country bumpkins, etc.
West Virginia has been making comebacks in other areas, but the general feel there is, I don't want to be around.
Well, it hosts Tim Pool now, so that's
fantastic.
Radical centrist Tim Pool.
My God.
But I mean, yeah, just find yourself a place.
The way he transformed last year was phenomenal.
It really was. It was.
I'm so center of the road, I can't comment on this. To God damn it, I hate Biden. If you're not voting Trump, I don't know who you're voting for.
Well, I mean, he really called it with the landslide, but none of that mattered at the end of the day. And I really do think that bothers him, too. I think he lends a lot more credence into mainstream media than he really should, because that's kind of where he was born. But, he's deferring to these genuinely vile people far more than he ought. But I've gotten off on a tirade on this thing. So, yeah, if you're moving somewhere, move somewhere blue, and you're stupid. Don't do it. You're asking to have your money stolen, and your, Okay, well, Sam Hyde said what you're looking at having happen if you move to one of these places. I will paraphrase and say they hate you and they want the worst for you. I could not paraphrase and say that they hate you, they want you dead, and they want your children raped, and they think it's funny. And I would not be inaccurate. So, paraphrased or unparaphrased. Take it how you like.
Here's another thing on moving to a blue area. Massive inflation is coming this decade.
Oh, yeah.
Because the way spending is being done. It's like if you saw that Biden just proposed $6 fucking trillion in his budget.
Yeah, and it started at 9. And they're like, "Hey, big compromise, guys. We won't do the 9. Check it out. We're just going to do 6."
Babylon B came back with a perfect response to that. Was GOP comes in with fiscally responsible $5.9 trillion budget.
Yes, exactly.
Fucking unreal.
It is.
Yeah, this is the biggest deficit in decades, which I saw someone brainlessly suggest was the biggest debt in decades. I'm sorry, but the national debt has never been lower, ever. Period. Never been lower.
It's we live in interesting times. We have been blessed, as it were.
When they don't get like, for instance, the Clinton surplus. That was a surplus in the budget, not in debt. Not the country didn't have extra money at that point.
Well, actually, that's a really good point you're making there, because that's very similar to the situation we're in now, where we've got something like almost $1 trillion in Corona monies that are just sitting there. They're doing absolutely nothing that could be used for these projects. And the Biden White House has come out and said, no, that's Corona money. We can't use that for other things. It's like, but we're not using it for anything.
The funny thing is, that money might be needed later with the way things are going, in my opinion.
Possible.
But at the same time, that money can be appropriated later, because right now it's all fucking debt. It's all funny money. There's no need to allocate it now and then bitch about it later. Just spend it if you're going to spend it like that. Because that's $1 trillion that is now out of taxpayers' hands, and it'll be reallocated at some point anyway. It's not going to be just, we're not going to do that. We'll just cancel that as debt.
Yeah, it's doing
nothing. That's already in accounts sitting there doing nothing. We've already spent the money as taxpayers. Well, our great-great-grandchildren have already spent that money as taxpayers. So that $1 trillion, if it's just sitting there, like, we can appropriate more of it to pay for Corona shit later if we need it. If there's projects like infrastructure stuff, which needs to get done now, we
And
should
does
just
not
spend it
include
on that.
childcare or elder care. Come on.
God.
It really doesn't.
Ah,
I don't care. I don't care
so
how
for $1
you
trillion,
crunch your numbers.
you could, for $1 trillion, you could replace most of the infrastructure in the U.S. and modernize it and get it up to code and get it so that it won't fail in the next year or two. The three fucking dams that got topped and broken through in Michigan last year
Gretchen Whitworth
should have been
Michigan?
a wake-up call. Should have been a fucking wake-up call to somebody. That we have infrastructure issues in this country. Most of the dams are out of date. Most of the roads are out of date. Most of the electrical grid's out of date. These are soft targets for other countries right now. If you thought the election was a soft target, our infrastructure is a very soft target.
Speaking of soft targets,
you saw what happened with the oil pipeline, or the gas pipeline rather, for distribution of gasoline to the East Coast.
Yeah, speaking of,
you're not target.
Yeah, that they're still having issues. By the way, they had another issue just over this past week.
Well, here's the thing that will actually, I think, should piss off everybody more. It wasn't even the actual. So I guess it was just tied in a way such that it fail-safed, which is, thank God whoever did that part. It was the payment infrastructure that got hit.
Yeah, it was actually them that did the shutdown. They shut it down because they couldn't charge people for what they were piping to them.
So, well, here's the thing where I think it might have fail-safed where they locked down the valve out.
It probably was like a built-in thing to do that, but
that's perfectly reasonable. Especially, it's also perfectly reasonable to not open that up until you sort your shit out. But at the same time, you should sort your shit out. Like, this is one of those. This needs to be a one and done occurrence. It needs to not ever happen again. But it's going to. So,
well, yeah, I mean, we talked about this actually right after it had happened, and just weeks prior, they had a posting looking for a head of IT security. And that does not bode well for an enormous fucking infrastructure company. That you don't have a completely, at minimum, adequate IT security force is not only laughable, it's horrifying. I mean, can you imagine the kind of security forces that AT&T has got, even still broken up as they are and down to where they are? At least they've got something.
Well, they've got something.
Because, I mean, at least they understand that they are a network. Whereas these guys are just like, we just send some stuff in some pipelines. That's not a network or anything. It's fine. It's all in Pascal. Who cares?
So, yeah, these pipelines are critical infrastructure, and the fact that they aren't maintained like it is kind of nuts. Now, that said, what they really don't need is, like, and I'm guessing there's going to be, at least in the state or in several states, inquiries into it. There's not really legislation that would have prevented this because it was definitely human error.
Oh yeah, no, this was entirely a fuck up, and it was overlooking things that resulted in a fuck up, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so there's not like there isn't a way that you're gonna legislate this out of happening again, and you can't like find them into compliance. So I mean, a routine audit is probably going to be the closest you're going to come.
Yeah, oversight is the only thing that's going to work on something like this, and you need good oversight too. You don't need just like some yes man with the okay stamp.
So this is where I like the way that they do it with things like engineering boards and other professional boards. When the federal government charters a private entity, the private entity has to sustain itself. So it runs like a private business, but the government is like, think of like the government being one of the founders. They provide the charter document saying, hey, you're a company, you're affiliated with the government.
Well, actually, this is what was done with a lot of the train system in England, and it ended up in that ended up in disaster, didn't it? In England, but like we did it here, and it ended up working perfectly.
Well, so the funny thing is that the way that we work here is the government is hands off. All you are is affiliated with the government, and part of your funds go through the government budget, meaning that you pay them, not like the other way around.
Okay.
So every engineering board, every time an engineer goes and does their training units for the year, they go to the seminars or they go and teach something. There's usually money involved for that, and there's a kickback to the charter company that governs things. Every time an engineer takes a test to get their certifications and to get their licenses, there's part of that money goes to the state licensing board. Same thing for doctors, and doctors have levels upon levels of boards they have to go through.
Sure.
So, like, you just, there's, if you do a specialization, you have to do a board. You do a subspecialization, you have to do a board. You do a tertiary. So, for instance, if you're like a person who does pediatric neurosurgery, good fucking luck, because you're going to be in residency forever. But also, you got like 3 or 4 different levels of boards to go through just to get there. And each one of those licensures requires dues and requires you to go and do these seminars and training. You have to get your license by taking the exam. So all those have fees and costs associated with them. All that kind of money will come back to the parent company that's set all that stuff up, the state board. And it is a company. It's an incorporated company. So that is a way you can set up an oversight company. And the cool thing is, these kinds of companies, because they're chartered, and they do protected professional titles. Technically, it's possible to do competition with them, but they also have the kind of like a foot in the door for a monopoly in that sense. So they're kind of like the big company in the room.
Yeah, gorilla.
But technically, you can't have competition. But moreover, the state has the right and purview to create that competition artificially with more charters. So while one charter is usually enough, the state, if they see that there's something lacking, can just make another board. So the same thing goes here for oversight. If they wanted to, they can charter a company that specifically oversees, say, pipeline technical infrastructure. And then after that, by law, you can impose a requirement that inspections are done by, say, an accredited or a chartered company. That's something you can do. It's kind of like requiring that drivers have car insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They don't specify which insurance company you have to get insurance with, but they say you got to do it. So if they say you've got to have these things inspected, you got to have your IT assessed, expect to see a wellspring of new companies come out from entrepreneurial individuals that'll take advantage of the situation appropriately.
Or, another example that some of the listeners might actually appreciate is the way that a concealed carry permitting system is done basically across the U.S. In that most of the training is done by the NRA, but you don't have to be NRA. You just basically got to meet some specifications and make sure that
just show up.
Those, pretty much, yeah. But you've got to make sure that the, shall we say, students in your care are able to meet these particular requisites, which are not generally terribly hard to meet. They vary from state to state.
So my dad actually just recently went and I guess there was some training thing, because he hasn't had to do whatever. I guess he hasn't been to a range in a while, but he had to go and he re-upped his training recently, I think last year, and apparently it's gotten a hell of a lot scarier with a lot of the people that showed up. He did not feel safe in the room with some of these people. And it wasn't like they looked scary or they like were competent with a gun. We're talking about the people who pick up a firearm with their finger on the trigger, point the barrel at you, and look down and go, "Hey, how's this work?"
Oh, so he was taking a class with the ATF?
There might have been a couple of liberals in there too, yeah.
Oh, he was probably taking a government class. It was probably all for ATF and DEA agents then. You'll have that.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because he was doing it at like a decent like private range and so on, but yeah, I could see that happening.
Well, they like to.
It might have just been might have just been a bunch of first-time gun owners that
exactly feds and the feds exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're absolutely in agreement on that then. Your dad's probably got some good connections out of that then.
A bunch of Chipman acolytes, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Probably going in for the first time to try out their Glock 40. God bless those glow-in-the-dark angels. They certainly do protect us from ourselves, don't they?
It is a PETA to find ammo still, even with those bullet factories going back online.
I'm telling you
know,
what,
the government purchasing what was like 9 billion rounds or whatever did not help.
no,
They are loaded with so much fucking ammo right now. It is nuts.
It's almost like they
If you wonder
feel
why
a
people
need for it.
if you ever wonder why a citizen needs a gun, it's because they bought that much ammo expecting to need to use it somewhere.
Yeah, they have offices entirely devoted to figuring out how many of a thing we're going to need. And they think they need billions of bullets. And we're not in an active war anywhere.
Well, remember this maxim, which is my own derivative of several others. The government's not going to take away your gun unless they're planning on doing something an otherwise reasonable person would shoot someone for.
Yeah, pretty much. Like they wouldn't. Well, I mean that falls to the other. They wouldn't be trying to. They wouldn't be feeding you full of propaganda and pumping you full of lies if they didn't feel the need to. It's all kind of part of the same game.
Let's just say this though. Sometimes that boils down to incompetence. For example, in my opinion, Fauci. That's incompetence. That guy should have been fired last year in March. But he wasn't.
I'll tell you something that anybody that's listening to this or that ever listens to this in the future can take to the bank. There was one person carried over from the Trump administration. And that was Tony Fauci. And not only was he carried over, he was celebrated. And that should tell you everything that you need to know. And also, I completely, we got off on such a tangent that I never finished the bit on the Chinese thing with the Chinese tech researchers. Oh, yeah, no. I mean, it's good show stuff, but I do want to clear this up so that folks actually know what happened with that.
Yeah,
so, as I was saying, with that, Chinese students and entrepreneurs, individuals and such, they were a large portion of the hacker community that was coming up with these zero-day fixes and these problems to get the payouts. Well, fairly recently, China passed some laws that forbid individuals from performing in these competitions. But, of course, China being China, well, they're not going to throw away a resource like that. And as a matter of fact, the law was put there entirely to tap that resource. So they're running their own competitions now. And those competitions are, shall we say, in-house. Everything that comes out stays in China, and it gets fed directly to the CCP. So
I gotta tell you, I think that it'll probably be interesting to see exactly how much the quality drops in the competition finalists, because the software that comes out of China is already so shit that it fixing that is got to be just a cakewalk.
Well, I mean, look at it this way.
It's one of those.
If we look at one of the most recent products out of China to, shall we say, appreciate worldwide adoption, if such a product was designed, I don't know, to kill, as oftentimes products of a biological nature are that are made for this purpose, 99.9957, if I'm not mistaken, that's a pretty shitty survival rate if you're trying to make a biological weapon. All I'm saying.
Yeah, you are mistaken. So if you divide by all people that are possible to infect instead of all people who were infected, you get something like that.
I see. I estimated too highly.
If you divide by the entire population, yeah, you get a number like that. If you divide by only those who are infected, you don't get a number like that.
Well, there you go. Even with my generous numbers.
So here's the thing. with a virus, if you wanted to use it as a weapon and you wanted to cripple a nation, you wouldn't give them something like Ebola, which kills dramatically quickly and doesn't have a very long incubation time. You'd have something that has a very long incubation time, doesn't necessarily kill people, but maims them, and then lingers for years.
Right.
So
but
that you don't
you
know
don't
who
fuck
has
yourself
it.
up with it.
So that you don't know who has it. Whoever gets it has a relatively low chance of dying, but has a high chance of consuming resources for a number of years, if not the rest of their life, and makes them functionally less capable as a worker or a soldier. And then you might, for instance, want to do something like, I don't know, build up your entire navy and army at the same time, like, say, a certain country's doing.
And you might also want to have all of your populace that happens to be abroad maybe pick up some extra PPE, just in case, for no reason. You know, clean out whole stores of it.
That's partly a reasonable. So, assuming you're a member of that country.
Same thing. Company, corporation, same thing.
Assuming you're a member of that country, it is wholly reasonable and logical and rational for you to want to protect yourself and your family first, especially if you're abroad. And if that might involve
also if you take into account too the very nature of that individual corpo country.
Now some of those people who are abroad might not actually have family to protect and might have a government funded credit card, but let's leave that part out, I suppose.
Yeah, ignoring the fact that every company that has 50 employees or greater is legally bound to have a CCP representative on board. Barring that. But yes, continue.
Yeah. So it's entirely rational for an individual abroad to want to protect their family at home and to collect the PPE and then ship it back. But like I said, that is notwithstanding certain individuals that have government-backed credit cards and no spending limit that are capable of purchasing materials on their own in the same exact way.
Yeah. Peculiar.
So sussing out which one is which would be kind of a pain in the ass if you think about it for a minute there. How do you know who's funding which bank accounts to provide the capital required to pay off those credit card debts?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, really, it doesn't matter either, which is kind of the real son of a bitch of it. I mean, at the end of the day, we lose.
Yeah, well, there is one outcome at the end of that, and it doesn't matter which was the motivation.
Too true, sadly.
Very sadly, because some people, sending back PPE that got to their family and did save their lives. Some people just sent PPE back home and had it sit out in a warehouse until all the Americans wanted it. And hey, the price is right now.
And then, some asshole in New Jersey.
If they're not going to get trade deficits out of normal trade, they'll get trade deficits out of gouging during a pandemic. That would be one hell of a calculation to make, wouldn't it? How much money do they make off of that?
Oh, I know there's a lot of stuff that's being shipped back to America that was made in America from China.
It probably wouldn't be I would say it's billions would be a high estimate, but millions, tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions. That's not out of the realm of a reasonable guess.
Well, I mean, the difference between 59 million and 80 million is very few, and that makes a huge difference. So, a million here, a million there, it can change the world. It can absolutely change the world.
Well, yeah, it can easily start wars in the Middle East and
yeah, absolutely. It can tear apart peace accords
It can tear apart the Middle East. It can tear apart South America. It can tear apart India and Pakistan, India and China.
Cost nearly 1 million jobs in America. Drive up the price of oil.
Knock off a 0 on a jobs report. That was a big fuck up.
Oh, oof, as they say. Oh, that's
I was told though, but he's caused, what was it, 100 million new jobs, right? That's the going thing.
well, yeah. I mean, China's got 100 million new jobs now, right? Oh, but I have another
Remember,
spot of good news that I'd like to drop on us too.
okay.
Oh no, what were you going to say? I'll hold off
I
on
was
this.
gonna say, remember that Putin loved Trump, but that's why Trump put sanctions on him and Biden took them off.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Never mind that he was like, "Oh hey Germany, that Russia pipeline? Ah, fam, all good, go for it. Yeah, you're gonna have to get it from somewhere. Well, you go right on ahead, Merkel. You go ahead, darling." And there you go.
But anyway, you're mentioning some good news.
I was indeed. Let me drop it right here in the show ideas for you. But it doesn't really affect us. But it affects
Okay.
any listeners that we might have in the Michigan area. Well, guess what? Governor Whitmer and Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist looks like they are on the chopping block. The recall petitions can proceed without
Yes.
error, without with all due haste,
Without-
I should say. So,
So I actually knew people. So Midland up there is where Dow is,
yeah.
and I know people who are up there, and I know I was ringing them up when they were getting flooded. You know, hey, did you get out? Did you get out safe? That kind of shit. This fucking this fucking witch needs to go. Um,
Oh,
she
absolutely.
needs to be gone. She needs to be out. Like in the middle of a fucking pandemic, this shit was allowed to happen, and you know it was blamed on everyone else but her, and her administration failing to do normal routine checks on this shit.
And doing basic due diligence.
Because they're saying, oh, but they're privately owned. It's like, yeah, they're privately owned, but they're state inspected,
And we
and
won't even
shortening up those
talk about
inspections.
all the bullshit that she pulled that was honestly, in its way, more draconian than ᵂᵒⁿᵶ. You
Yeah,
know,
she
you
was
couldn't
brutal
go
with that.
into a Walmart and buy seeds that you could reach for with your very hand to plant for your own foodstuffs. But by God, in that same Walmart, you could buy some ice cream.
Yeah, they're doing the same shit in California. That was nuts.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely
Thank fuck
insane.
I'm
Just
growing in a different state because like I got a garden going right now. I mean, it's modest as it is, but like you know, I get my greens right now daily, easily.
oh sure,
Yeah, I could eat, I could. Thankfully, I'm in a state where they're sane, and I could easily just go and purchase it. But at the same time, like had this been say Michigan or California, I'd be shit out of luck. You know, like some places in California, and early on they didn't have that restriction immediately, but then they did have it for a while, and like people were wanted to go like a Walmart. Walmart, you couldn't buy fucking seeds at a Walmart. Why? Or like at Costco, same shit.
yeah, it was quite insane. And then another one for that very same place. She ruled that the pot shops and the liquor stores could stay open because I think they have like state liquor stores or something like that.
Well, they have a state license for liquor stores. So like think like Virginia ABCs because like ABC as a company is you know is national, but Virginia only Virginia state licensed companies can like so they're affiliated with the state to sell liquor. So a liquor license is generally a state license for selling alcohol either like as a bottled beverage or as a prepared drink.
Yeah, and there are some states that are very like weird in
Some
particular
states
about
are
that.
goofy about it. Yeah,
Now, Pennsylvania is a classic example.
yeah,
they've got state liquor stores and state beer stores, and you won't find liquor or
right,
beer anywhere else other than a restaurant or a bar or say a club.
right.
And they did the same thing there. I mean, they kept those open. I mean, wisely so, if we're being honest. I mean, people really desperately needed access to some kind of release during the early days of this pandemic.
Well, it's funny because it's kind of like the Egyptians and the Jews at that point. Why did they feed them beer slurry? Oh, because it kept them from rioting.
Yeah, well, we saw how the no rioting worked out.
get your population good and hammered when you're giving them their food.
Yeah, that worked out well enough.
Yeah, it worked out great, didn't it? Instead, all the meth heads came out.
We could.
I'm sorry.
Well, no. Well,
they're not meth heads.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest. It was mostly peaceful, right? Mostly peaceful.
All right. Speaking of mostly peaceful shit, and things that were trending on Twitter not that long ago, Lafayette Square, that square out in front of the White House, but between the White House and the Oval. So, yeah. By the way, the place where Trump held his rally on 1/6 was in the Oval, which is on the other side of Lafayette Square from the White House. So, or it's all in the same. What doesn't matter? It's all in the same area. But point is, for days and nights, they allowed protests and then fiery riots. Fiery, but mostly peaceful riots, I suppose.
Right. Mostly peaceful fires.
Well, they were called protests, of course, because why the fuck would they use the appropriate word? At protests, you literally burn the fucking foliage out in front of the White House, let alone buildings and cars. They were beating people in the streets. They were stealing shit, lighting things on fire, like the church right across from the White House.
Yeah, that was a thing that happened and was reported on extensively, as a matter of fact. How Trump's what should we say, his jackbooted thugs came by and smashed in the skulls of the innocent children and babies so that they would leave the church so that he could go and get a smiling picture, right?
We got to be fair about this. There are numerous instances of people who had a legitimate reason to be there, say photojournalists or protesters who were just protesting, that were abused by the Leos and MPs that showed up. There are also, however, multiple instances of people either initiating or reciprocating violent actions with those Leos and MPs. So it was a clusterfuck all around. There was no good guys that came out of that. And certainly when it came to the president showing up and a national security concern in that regard, they did need to clear the area, and they did need to give that lawful order. So there's something to be said for civil disobedience, standing your ground when a police officer tells you to move, and then allowing them to arrest you when you don't move. There's also something to be said about a Leo throwing you off of a vehicle while you're taking a photo of the fucking president. Again, probably after disobeying a lawfully given order to move. But that does not necessitate excessive use of force, in my opinion.
Oh, sure.
But then you have, say, the full fucking week after that of burning shit in the street, burning cars, burning buildings, beating people, looting. All this, of course, and all this, mind you, while calling for the end of the U.S. government. I'm not seeing how this is much better or worse, mind you, I'll say that, than the 800-odd people that showed up inside of the Capitol building. Several, and I won't say 800, not paint them with that picture, but several of them, on the order of 50 to 100 of them, just by my guesstimate, and that's probably an overestimate, that were there to do damage to the country and to the property.
Well, yeah, but we have to consider one thing there before you really say whether one is better than the other. I would say that...
But 5 hours versus a week,
Oh, yeah. Well, not only that, is we have to consider the composition of these groups and the fact that we could always find leftist agitators in both groups, curiously enough.
Well, so here's the thing on that. So 1/6 was not caused by Antifa.
Oh, no.
Just flat out, so there was a handful of them that showed up there that were definitely there.
Yeah, and of course John Sullivan as well.
After that, it's all yeah. So John Sullivan's one of them. After that, it's all speculation. There's John Sullivan and 6 others that I know of But I don't have a resource I could pull up immediately on that. I'd have to go find it again.
Yeah, and then
But like that,
there was some
that's
Patriot
two
group
hands.
too that absolutely glowed in the dark so bright my eyes hurt to even read about them.
Sure. So, but I'd say like if we're gonna talk about like who was there to cause trouble, you have like a handful of people that were there to fuck things up because they're lefty fuckwits, and then you got your little glow in the dark squad of people. Fine. This all, of course, ignores the fact that there were supposedly two pipe bombs placed the night before. One of which was caught on camera, uh, with the guy showing up to do it, had a hood on and everything.
And we still lack an answer on who that individual was. As a matter of fact, I've been
Yeah.
trying to keep up with it, and it's largely been buried.
So that well, this is, what largely might be the case there is that they have no idea.
Oh, entirely possible, yeah.
So my guess is that you're going to be waiting for a couple of years for that to come out if they catch the guy. And if he showed up, you put a pipe bomb down, and they detonate the fucking thing inside of a can to get rid of it. So, by the way they do a bomb disposal isn't like to set off the trigger on the bomb inside. They place another bomb next to it inside the thing that they use to detonate. And they hope that that either destroys the other bomb and prevents it from going off and scatters it about, or sets it off and neutralizes it. They're not looking to necessarily disable the device intricately. It's not like those scenes in the movies where they go in there and they try to defuse it. They just put a big fucking heavy can on top of it, like a lead cylinder. I mean, it's lined with steel and whatnot, but they put basically a big bucket on top, put a little device in there to go off next to it, and it's like a human-sized bomb calorimeter, so to speak. There's no other readings going on. They just detonate the thing inside and pick up the pieces afterwards.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, like, if they're certain there's no like chemical warfare component to this, even if there's like a little bit of radiation being given off, they'll just seal it up in one of these things and let it rip, and that'll scatter shit about such that nothing bad can happen.
Well, it's
And
just
they
easier.
can pick up pieces afterwards. Absolutely, way easier.
I mean, it's a cost-effective thing, and it does work.
And it saves lives, generally speaking.
Yeah, it's
If you try to
fast.
defuse something,
Yeah,
it's also very fast.
yeah, just think about it this way. You got a chest here. You got something the size of a Foot Locker that weighs 800 pounds that you chode out to your scene. You throw the thing in there, you close it, and you fucking kick it. Or you bring out Johnny Big Badass Tech that's been doing this for 15 years and has lost a pinky just the one time when he fucked up, and you've only got your one Johnny Badfingers. It's just simple. You want to be able to give.
This isn't the. It's not the beginning of the Rock,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Just throw the thing in the box, close the box, give it a kick.
And the people who are putting the thing in the box are, ever so gingerly doing it with a full bomb suit on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Like they're
but I mean, that is to say, you can take Johnny Cop and say, all right, listen, Johnny Cop, I need you to put on this suit, and I need you to be 10 times as careful as you've ever been in anything in your life. But you can do
Well,
this.
they could do so. That's the funny thing is while they in my opinion definitely could do that, they actually do have bomb techs that are specialists that wear the suit that go in and do this stuff.
Oh no, you absolutely do.
Basically, it's so that they know exactly how fucked they are if they screw it up.
Yeah, it's like you don't. It's like sending in an EMT and just some nobody. Yeah, some nobody can do some basic first aid.
Yeah.
And an EMT can do some basic first aid, but an EMT knows which points of the basic first aid are going to get the job done.
For instance, put down a little a latex dam before you give mouth to mouth, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kind of the difference between certification and watching it on television. And there is an update for anybody that hasn't been right on the edge of the news following the January 6th bullshit. That was all resolved. There is not going to be a commission that fell apart in the last few days. So the January 6th stuff, it's not going to start disappearing right away, but there's no more political money behind it. So that means the willpower will start to diminish.
So that's the funny thing. I got into an argument with
and I'll drop a link for you here if you're interested off of Fox News too.
Okay. So I got into an argument with that about someone. And I was, basically they're sitting there saying, "Oh, accountability, accountability." It's in, I bring up different subject, deflection, deflection. It's like, look, okay, it's guaranteed to be a partisan circus, and regardless of how you feel about Benghazi, you can't say that what happened
Well,
for
actually,
those
let
investigations
me pause
wasn't a
you and
partisan
actually
circus.
zoom in on your statement specifically about it being a partisan circus. And just hold your thought, because if we look at the vote
All right.
for this, there were 7 flat out, quote unquote, old school Republicans who voted totally in favor of this commission.
Sure.
This commission was to be composed, a bipartisan commission of 10 individuals, 5 Democrats, 5
Yes, no,
Republicans.
7 would be on it.
So, the Democrats could just say, you know what? No, we're feeling extra generous. Tell you what, we're going to give you 6. We're going to pick 6 of your guys and then 4 of our guys. And I can tell you exactly who they would have been. But I just had to interject that there to give a little bit of clarity
No,
on
that's
what you were saying.
appropriate.
But please do resume as you were.
So, regardless of how you feel about Benghazi, it's, I think, a sane and rational or objective observation to say that it was a partisan circus. All those were partisan circuses. Some more details came out, sure, but had an investigation, a proper investigation by a nonpartisan body, or say one that's entirely dependent upon a fact basis for pertinent results, happened ahead of time, they would have at least had that as a scaffolding to go on. For instance, you remember the Mueller report and all that nonsense that went with that.
Oh, certainly.
But you also remember that when they did the Senate hearings or the congressional hearings, they had to stick to that fucking report the entire time that they were, sitting there probing about it.
Oh yeah,
It
absolutely.
was all
It
based on
built
the
the
report.
framework of their whole case,
Right.
basically.
So basically my argument was that this 1/6 commission is premature. Now I was being told, oh, but it's a blue ribbon panel, blah blah. It's like, nah, fuck that. Goddamn well they're going to go in there and deliberate the last 30 years of political theory in a big bitch fest, and they're not going to get anything out of it besides sound bites for the next election. It's entirely a political football for 2022, and it works both ways for the Democrats, because now when it comes to 2022, they're going to be able to say, but they didn't, they caused the riot on 1/6. They caused this worst thing since Pearl Harbor, and then they didn't even want to investigate it. Whereas otherwise, they'd be able to say, okay, let's go ahead and parade out a whole bunch of people and say, but how were you involved? And try to fuck them over with sound bites and trick questions and self-incriminations. So now that they can't do that, they're going to rely on it as campaign material, which is, par for the Hill. So the same thing was going on with Benghazi. If you don't believe me, go back and look at the campaign ads for that year alone, for the next year alone.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, that was an absolute talking point.
Regardless of like how you feel about it, regardless of how you feel about Benghazi itself, or the fact that Obama and fucking Hillary tried to blame it on a YouTube video, the fact is that it was a campaign builder for the next year, which is the way politics works on the Hill right now. The fact that it's gotten so much more brazen about it in the last couple of decades, more so in the last decade than the one prior, but definitely the last couple of decades has really picked up. The fact that that's the case is just sad, but it's the way it is. So when I tried to bring this out and this guy starts telling me fucking accountability, I can't do anything but laugh at him. It's like, you're wrong. Like, you are definitely fucking wrong on this, and just kept going. It's like, look, Trump was definitely at fault after he was told about the riot. The riot kicked off in the middle of his goddamn speech before he even got to the point where he said, we're going to go over there and be peaceful. But he also said, we're going to go over there and we're going to be peaceful. When he was told by Chuck, he was begged by Chuck Schumer on Twitter or to send out a tweet saying to go home. Like 40 minutes later, he had a video that went out, a video tweet that went out saying, everybody be peaceful, go home. Like he was actively trying to resolve the situation. His response immediately after being told was to laugh about it and hold back on National Guard. That was a fuck up on his part. He should have
Actually,
immediately
that,
gotten that shit under
to my
control.
understanding, that was not actually his call. That he had called for
So
these to be done, and there
the
were,
police, the police were not his call.
yeah,
The police were Muriel Bowser's call. It is her fuck up that they were not there in force that day. Now, it doesn't matter if, say, Trump or Pelosi or whoever said you can have normal duty for the patrols. They should have had heightened patrols that day, regardless, because it was
well,
a big day and everybody
they
knew it.
they knew full and well what was coming,
Right.
and we can look at this probably as another Pearl Harbor situation. In all honesty, they
That's
saw what was
in a
coming, they knew it was
tortured,
there,
in a,
and they
in a
just
tortured way. In a tortured way, yeah, I can see your point. But like, even then, not really, because Muriel Bowser isn't like a member of Congress,
yeah. Muriel Bowser is
much as she thinks she is.
no Truman.
So yeah, exactly. So it is, however, uh, Trump's responsibility to call the National Guard. Now it's anybody in his chain of command, because it's not a direct report to him. It goes through whatever major, was it major or general or whatever it is. There's some other person in charge of National Guard that he could talk to directly, or the vice president can talk to, which is what happened. Um, so Trump did not help with that, and so he fucked up after the fact, but he did not cause the riot. Like
No,
he
no.
didn't. This shit was planned on. Here's the kicker: on fucking Facebook, months in advance.
Indeed, it was. Indeed, it was. So,
So,
has Facebook come back up
not
yet
months. Yeah,
since they got shut down after that? Because they got shut down, right?
yeah, you think
They
so,
got
wouldn't
shut
you?
down. Like Parler got shut down, Twitter got shut down, and Facebook got shut down. They all three got shut down for contributing to that, right?
Yeah, they all got shut down by
And we're
Amazon, who
still
also got
waiting
shut down,
for,
right?
yeah, because they all use Amazon Web Services. Exactly. Yeah, and they were all shut down. And we're still waiting for all three of those to. Oh no, Parler's back, right? Has Twitter come back up yet? Oh yeah, it has.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
know.
hold on, I'll check. Yeah,
Let me
Twitter's
go
back
check
up.
my mentions and
Twitter's
see if I'm
back
getting
up
called
here.
a Nazi again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, an Ashkenazi, right?
Right. Hey, I'm Havzi. I'm Ashkenazi and Sephardi Nazi, right? I'm just not Mizrahi Nazi.
Ah, oy vey, as they say.
You think that some of these people would fucking learn, but no, it's instantaneous. My name must not seem Jewish enough, you know?
Maybe you should add another menorah to the line. You got a menorah in there somewhere, don't you? No, it's all
Do I?
science symbols. Maybe you should add a menorah in there. That'll do it.
Hold on, let me go check my profile here. You know, it's funny because I had some guy. This is the guy who I was arguing about 2+2 with for
Oh wait, no, you
over a
got
fucking
you
year.
got the two stars of David in there. You're good to go.
Right. So he looked at he looked at that set of symbols, and his conclusion, his backward ass rationalization of him being a fucking anti-Semite later, was that the two symbols for hands were Georgian symbols. So when he was calling me a Jew who hates LGBT people, just so he could, he went on Google and basically found the first fucking one in history. Um, he went with a Georgian Jew, and then he's like, oh, but those are Georgian symbols later on. It's like, yeah, we know what you're trying to fucking do there, buddy, and it's not working. Loser. But yeah, I do have those as my location. I have the little meme face, little emoji of a guy, basically saying, "What the fuck."
Yeah, you got your oy vey face there.
Right.
Oh me, oh my.
Yeah, so I ran out of room for symbols, so I have to delete one.
Well,
I
you
like my
got that in there,
abacus.
so that should be good.
I like the abacus, so I can't put a menorah in. Well, maybe I can have this guy do an oy vey and a menorah.
Hey, there
If
you go.
it'll even allow me to do
That'll
that for the
double it up.
location.
Maybe have him spin a little dreidel too.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna see if I can do that.
Hey, might as well, do it up.
Good suggestion, sir. Let me go over to Emojipedia and find these things.
Absolutely. And in the meanwhile, while you're doing that, I've got some more good news. This one actually came out, what was this, 3 days ago? There was a vote on an amendment into I can't remember the exact bill, but the long and short of it is genetically engineered cat girls are go. So there was the bill was something or other, but the amendment was from Senator Braun that would have prohibited, human animal chimeras. They needed 60 votes to pass, and it fell apart 48-49. So, for those of us who actually support rampant and wanton tampering with human genetics, this is an absolute win. Or, if you like, cat girls are go.
Okay, so it looks like there's only the one emoji for Hanukkah.
Ah, too bad.
No dreidel. Although, of course, it's also known as a candelabrum or candles on Emojipedia, because apparently that's the specific shape of this is not specific enough, even though it is specific to the holiday.
Huh. Well, you learn something
Although
new every day.
I can see the upset, because the one for Samsung and WhatsApp are not kosher. The Shamash, the one in the middle is supposed to be taller than the others.
Oh, I see.
Oh, and OpenMoji, also not kosher. Very big fuck up, guys.
Ah, terribly anti-Semitic, fellas. Come on.
You have the 8 days, which are all the same height.
Be better.
Build back better, damn it.
Good times. Good times.
I mean, you'd think they'd at least have a spinning top, but I don't see one.
Huh. Really? I mean, Inception was big, right?
Right.
Anyway. But actually, I think this is some legitimately good news, though, that we'll be able to... It kind of gets us out of a lot of the old school thinking that we've actually discussed before, where, with genetic engineering, where we were kind of barred from using fetal stem cells, which led us down the path to finding these pluripotent stem cells in umbilical cords and elsewhere.
Well, see, pluripotent stem cells are a fantastic item. The reason why is you can take them from an adult. So you can, for instance, if you have an exorbitant excess of money, I believe it's still the case that you can purchase a replacement tooth that is grown from your own pluripotent stem cells.
Really? That seems like a reasonable cost. Oh yeah, that wouldn't be that
might just still be in research. That might still be in research, but I believe that's the case. Yeah, and that's the point of it, is it's perfect organ replacement. And the reason it works is that you can build a scaffolding for a tooth very, very easily. You take a donor tooth, you depopulate it with cells, you seed it, it grows back. As long as you're providing blood in the right place, and there's only 4 places where you provide blood, it grows back like a tooth. So all I have to do is make sure it gets to the point where it grows in an enamel, and that doesn't take very long. It's less than a year. Again, that might still be in research, but I believe that might be marketed as a product now.
Actually, I will find something real quick. I've got something out of the Times of India here that I'll throw in the show links for everybody, and I'll put it in the show links for you too, so you can check this out.
Sure.
And it looks like they might be done it.
That makes sense now. Okay, so it might not be in the U.S. yet. Kind of like that Vasogel, the stuff that you can use to get a vasectomy. I don't think that's approved in the U.S. yet either, but it was definitely approved in India first, because they have a population problem.
Absolutely.
Vasogel, that was it, not Vasogel.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing this, and I mean, just the pictures alone are really quite something. They're really doing amazing work. It's an interesting article and totally worth checking out here. But yeah, they're
like I said, it's really simple to depopulate a tooth of cells, and it's a great scap. Like, there's not a whole lot of cells internally that matter anyway, and the cells that are inside the actual dentin, inside the actual bone material, those osteoblasts, those don't really interact with the rest of the body very much, so there's really hardly any way for them to get rejected in the first place. So as long as you seed the inside of the pulp part of the cell, it'll work, which is just cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah, like your incisors, you only have like, what is it? You have four. Okay, so it's four. You have 2 in and 2 out for blood vessels per core in your tooth. Your incisors have like 2, and your molars have 4. So, in the blood, everybody knows the kind of general shape of the molars, where they have like the 4 prongs.
I should hope so.
The blood vessels are like 2/3 to 3/4 of the way up the inside of the prong towards the center of the tooth. That's where the holes go in those areas. You know, and then one loop like circulates down to the bottom, and the other loops circulate up through the middle, and then they swap sides across the tooth. So as long as you like put blood in and out in the right places, you know, at the right time, of course, it'll actually make a tooth.
Yeah, and what they're doing here, they're basically we're turning ourselves into starfish. I kind of don't have a problem with that. You know?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is the downstream research is being done on that, and it is being done because I know people who are actually doing this kind of research with livers, let alone with some other organs. The idea is to be able to replace things as complicated as a heart with your own tissue.
Well, actually, we're there today. It's just
right. It's gotten to the point where they're actually doing it.
Yeah, I mean the studies
when I went
done.
in for my grad degree, there are people who are doing this with the ability to like knit bone back together by wrapping it with special scaffolding that had your stem cells in it. And now like you can like a liver grows back more or less on its own anyway. You can donate half your liver, the minor lobe of your liver, it'll grow back over a number of years. If you didn't know that, that's another place humans are regenerative. If you donate, you can donate up to half your liver as long as it's the one lobe, and the other it'll grow back from the central area. So, very nifty thing that can happen. But to go past that, of course, it'd be great if you could just, because you have to match all like 5 of 6 HLA factors to not get rejection syndrome or be on immunosuppressants for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue, as a matter of fact, with basically any kind of transplant, is that once you've got it, and for something to give this a something relatable to, I'm going to say probably a decent cross-section of our listeners now and future listeners. If you're familiar with the Deus Ex games, there's a drug, neuropozyne, that all these people that have got all these cybernetics have to take, because if they don't, the body starts to reject them. And it's the very rare individual that does not need this thing, because it's not your parts. Your body doesn't want it there, and it's trying to push it out. So it's it's very relatable if you understand that series, to try and give you an analogy.
To have a good chance of not getting rejection syndrome, you need to have 5 out of 6 HLA match. You'll get 6 out of 6 if it's from your own cells. That's bottom line. You will get the perfect match if it's from your own body. And this is beyond blood type, mind you. This is different factors now that we're talking about.
Oh yeah, this is a well above and beyond blood. This is the hormones, and not even that, the architectural nature of the thing, like the actual physical hard structure as it is meant to live inside of the body that is the machine that is you.
So if it's coming at it, your liver is something you can actually donate half of. Your spleen is not. The spleen is a relatively simple structure in the overall kind of design of it, but internally it's still got some complications. but it is one of the kind of obvious next target organs that can be replaced. But unfortunately, if you have a disease in your spleen, it's kind of noticeable, and it's kind of not going to wait. So your pancreas is kind of another obvious one to look at. If you have pancreatic issues, that's something that will take a little more time, unless it's like pancreatic cancer. That one won't take much time. Generally speaking, that one's pretty bad and fatal anyway, but you can theoretically kind of like pinch off to a certain degree and maybe try to replace the organ if you can get scaffoldings created in a certain way. So a lot of the issue is that a lot of these kind of experiments have to be done on cadaver materials that aren't necessarily going to be, it's kind of hard to get people to be okay with chopping up bodies that sell parts for experimental work. So, selling body parts is banned for that reason. So you have to wait for them to just become available through donations. And then those get divvied up by NIH and through NIH grants. So it's not likely that you're going to come across body parts outside of a government grant, which is one of the reasons why stem cell research being banned was such a big hit to the research community in that regard. There aren't really many organizations that collect body parts and then give them via grants without the ability to like sell them off,
Yeah, Planned Parenthood, they just sell theirs directly.
Right. That's just disgusting.
Under the table too. So, if you need some fetal tissue, Planned Parenthood's the place to go. They like if you're say you've got some rats and you want to, have some baby scalps on them, call up Planned Parenthood. They'll set you up, for a nominal fee.
Yeah. So one of the ways that people get around the need to donate the body parts is to have like a kickback on research, or to have something in the grant funding that has some requirement for funding dispersal. So like it might have something to do with the overhead in the grant. There might be like a negotiation for a reduction in overhead, or a kickback in funds towards future work. All that so again, the selling of body parts is basically banned, which is good.
For all the good it
Paying for
does.
having those body parts installed or researched on is not banned, however. So there's also that.
And of course, there's China.
Well, here's the funny thing about that. China also has a ban on selling body parts.
I find that hilarious.
It's hilarious because they do it anyway. The way they do it is they have fees from people in different departments that consult on the work, even though they might not ever show up. But they'll get percentages of the cost of the procedure, and that is how the different people get paid different parts of the money for selling the body parts. Because you're not buying the body part, you're buying the surgery.
Oh, of course. Well, it'd be legal to buy the body part, right?
Well, here's the thing. When I say people in different departments, they can be in different hospitals where they do the harvesting of the body parts. So say you have a mortician who's consulting on the quality of the body parts being used. Or say you have a person who is doing the medical evaluations at a Uyghur camp.
Probably the same person.
They can be consulted too. It's just that they might not have anything to do with the surgery, but they can still be consulted.
Well, I mean, they maybe do the local surgery, the harvesting, if you will.
Right. So that's the thing, is that's not technically legal either, but they do it because they're specifically permitted to by the party officials who would otherwise be the ones arresting them.
Yeah. I mean,
So since the party official is part of the hospital, because the hospital has more than 50 employees.
Indeed.
If it's not just a state hospital, mind you.
Right. Yeah, if it's not every single employee.
Right. So, because the party official might be, for instance, the person doing the consults on the Uyghur with that horrible liver condition that needs to be checked out by a surgeon, he might get something like 12% of the cost of the surgery, which might be, say, as much as $100,000, depending on the organ. $100,000 equivalent, mind you.
Oh,
So
sure.
not 100,000 yen, 100,000 American dollars equivalent.
Yeah, whatever that is in
So
yuan.
so out of a single person, if you got say a kidney, half a liver, um, basically if you can just think about all the expendable organs you can get out of a living person, you can get an eye out of somebody, without killing them. You can get well over $250,000 out of a single person, and people will go on medical tourism from other countries to get organ transplants in China. So this should tell you if the problem isn't just China, it's all of their customers who go there.
Oh yeah, no,
Now,
there's it's
China
you
needn't
look at
fill
the
it,
war on drugs,
right?
it's maybe if we
That's
had a place
that's
that
the
you could
interesting
just
thing.
buy some organs, maybe
Well, how interesting is that though? Like it's kind of the inverse, isn't it? Instead of sending the drugs out to where they're desired, you have people coming to you. I mean, if you're looking at it from a business perspective, that's the way to do things. You don't want to have to compete with everybody else in the locale. You want them coming to your door,
oh yeah, absolutely.
and they've definitely got that, and they've got that in spades with this racket they're running.
Oh, it's a hell of a racket. I would call it a grift, but it's not a grift, it's a racket, man.
Yeah, it's an international government sanctioned racket.
It certainly is. So I guess if nothing else, that should tell you to do everything you can to accelerate the proliferation of genetic sciences so that we
Yeah.
can
Well, they'll
drive these
probably still do it
organizations
anyway.
under
I'm
just
certain.
by means of capitalism.
I'm certain they're going to still do it anyway because, of course, it's. I think of it like this. It's like those people who say that that eating mold off of a tree is better than penicillin. You're going to have the people who are saying, yeah, but it's natural if you get it out of another person. And those are going to be the psychotic crazy people who we can all mock mercilessly.
Well, you can, and the thing about it is, you can just make it to where that's not feasible for them.
Well, here's the thing: how do you prosecute that in another country? Someone went on tour. They say they had a legitimate medical concern, predictable or not, predictable or not, in that other country. Came back after a hospital stay and surgery at their own expense. How do you go how what is the mechanism by which you could prosecute them for participating in such a barbaric system? There really isn't a good precedent for that in law in other countries. There really
I've
isn't
got
a
to be honest.
great
I don't
way
know if
to.
I've heard of such a case ever being tried anywhere
Right.
internationally.
And it really isn't a way that you could, like, how do you suss out, like I said, predictable or not, even if it's a predictable medical issue,
Well, the thing is,
at what
you'd
point do
need
you
the
draw the line?
case. You need that right case to take it up.
Well, at what point do you draw the line and say that you have caused, like, and how do you prove that you've caused harm in such a way that either legislation existing can be exercised or legislation could be drawn up to exercise later on? There really isn't a good way of doing that because you'd need the cooperation of the Chinese fucking government. And you're not going to, like, first off, they don't already outright denounce the practice and say it never happens. Like, they say it never happens, they say it's illegal, and they say it can't happen. And even if it did, they don't sanction it.
Well, I mean,
So
they're a
they've
member of
already,
the Human Rights Commission,
they've
so I mean, who
right.
are we to question them?
Like, so as a country, as a nation state, they've already denied its existence and its legitimacy if it did exist. So you're already not going to get cooperation from them because that is implicit acceptance that it is a thing that it happens. And they're not going to ever prosecute their own for this. So there really isn't like a good way to go after the person who went there to get it done in the first place. And this is, like I said, I don't see this as something you can really write to your senator or your state rep about.
You really kind of can't. You can't write to them about this, but you can, however, if there are any bills on the table involving genetic research, like the one just
Sure.
previously mentioned, that It's small, but it's a step in the right direction. And we really need as much freedom to do the science as the real
You fucking
science.
furry. You're a fucking furry.
We need as much room to do real science as we can have while still maintaining our ethical standards. Where
Yeah, for a furry. I'm being a dick, but like, god damn it, man.
Okay.
Look, you give them, you take them. It happens.
I guess. I mean, I'm so unmarried to the idea of furries that I could really kind of care less. But I do have another piece of good news that I don't know if you caught, and I don't know if
it's going to be about 10 minutes worth.
10 minutes? Probably not.
We're 20 minutes past what I was hoping to get done. Even so, I didn't mention this before, which is why I haven't said anything. But if we get done in like 10 minutes, that'd be awesome.
Oh yeah, no, I can pretty well.
Just to wrap things up.
I mean, we could wrap whenever, but I've got a couple of.
You said we should end on good news.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should end on good
news. Some reporting from Mr. Andy No. The Black Hammers, well, they did not get the land.
I saw that. That was fucking funny.
Yeah, they were unsuccessful in getting. Oh yeah, no, I did report on that actually last week when you weren't here, and I was wanting to tell you about it. So,
well, you know what they did? You know what they did successfully get? $60,000 from their suckers.
Indeed, they did.
Oh my god.
The Hammer Simps were.
Yeah.
Well, they were helpful.
Yeah, so good news on that. The water rights don't matter because they're not going to be relevant in the first place.
Yeah, no, not at all. So they had themselves a nice little vacation, made a crazy video for everyone to laugh at.
And like $60,000 worth of vacation. That sounds like a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you got to line the coffers one way or the other.
I mean, you got to factor in the amount of hours that they were working and their pay rate, because obviously they were working, not on vacation.
No, of course. I mean, well, you got to write these things off and all that.
That seems very capitalist of them for communists, though. So I guess they just redistributed the funds to themselves as they saw appropriate.
Well,
from each according to their ability to each according to their need, kind of thing.
Well, not only that. I mean, real communism hasn't been tried, so they're not trying it yet. You see? Once we get to where we're really trying it, then, it's like the diet, you're going to start next week. So, they're not doing the communism now. They're planning for the communism. That's why they're the planning committees and all these things. They're not, the doing committees. I mean, be reasonable here.
Oh, man. Reasonable would have been letting them have the land and laying siege to it like Waco.
Yeah. So that's one that you can contact your legislators and senators about and tell them, do not, under any circumstances, allow David Chipman anywhere near any source of power. He is a legitimately evil. I stretch to say this.
Even if you're like an atheist. Even if you're like an atheist and you don't believe in, say, good and evil as a dichotomy, this guy is about as twisted and fucked up as they come, and he's got power somehow. He's been in the ATF for forever.
Imagine if no one ever found Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
And he got paid to do all that shit, but he worked for the ATF the whole time, and they were like, hey, we need you to go skin a few guys. Hey, go chop the head off of this dude. And he was like, yes, thank you. And then, have you ever seen Dexter? There you go. Except he wasn't raised by a good person. So imagine Dexter, except he was raised by, I don't know, the devil. That's David Chipman. So contact your legislators. Let them know not to vote for the physical manifestation of evil on the earth in 2021. And also, keep your powder dry. Keep yourselves safe and well. There is ammo to be found, though it is pricey. And
it's hard to find.
It is hard to find, yes. So, take the deals as you can get them. And you've only got a few more days as of this, which, happy Memorial Day, everyone, as we're recording
Happy
now.
Memorial Day.
As it is now, you've got about You've got about 6 weeks, I think, to contact your representatives and contact the ATF to let them know that any incursion on your constitutional rights is unconstitutional. Any changes to the Second Amendment, any further changes or alienations of your rights or ability to manufacture arms in your home are utterly unacceptable. Be pleasant, be polite, be presentable, but be firm. And let them know that it's utterly unconscionable what they're doing with the Bill of Rights. And if I can, I'll try and find some links for that, maybe through the NRA, which, even though they're garbage and they did lose their recent bid to, kind of break up and pad LaPierre's pockets some more, they do good work even if they're shitty people. So, all the things being as they are.
People. The local people are good.
Yeah. Look for your local organizations. The Firearms Policy Coalition is an excellent organization to keep track of if you're wanting to follow an organization that's got stones and stands consistently even when it's bad for them, unlike the ACLU. So, just be thoughtful, be mindful. Give Craig a follow if you're on social media at CraigBob99. Give me a follow. I'm Evan, again, at that fake guy Dan. Pretty much everywhere except Facebook, because I'm not particularly fond of cyborg lizards, so I don't want to give them my business. And if you see one there, let me know on one of the other social medias. And
what was it? Okay, so this is what I said it was. Someone was talking about how Zuckerberg was this, that, or the other. I said, no, he's the illegitimate offspring of Data and the smart refrigerator.
Yeah, not fair. Although I imagine that. Illegitimate. Yes. I was going to say illegitimate child would actually,
illegitimate love child.
Be better than that.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, give us a follow. If you've got any show ideas, any questions, any comments, let us know anywhere. Let us know in the comments here. Hit us in messages. If you want to get an invite to the Discord, hit me up. I know I can get you one. You can hit Craig up and he'll get it to me. I think he can send them out. Sure. I don't know.
I believe I can. Yes, I can.
But either way, hit us up. Let us know. We're trying to make things a little bit bigger and a little bit better. There will be a live show cross soonish. We'll see.
Oh, cool.
But I do have the bandwidth to make it happen. I've been doing some test streams on Discord and elsewhere. I'm going to try out Twitch to see if I can make things work proper and see what's going to work and how. Also, make sure everything works with the mixer once I get it working again. Obviously, the Blue Yeti works a treat because it's a Blue Yeti, and they work an absolute fucking treat. And with that, everybody, it's been a pleasure. Be well and be safe. We'll talk to you again soon.